Hi guys, it's Nicole with Cozy Cloud Knits. So a lot of you have reached out and asked how I make my flower that I use on my animal snugglers. So I have two different kinds. I have a chunky hand knit flower, and then I have a crochet flower that I make using a hook. So this video will show you how to make the crochet flower using a hook. So let's begin by going over the supplies that we need. So for the supplies, you're going to need 2 different colors of Bernat blanket yarn. You're going to need a stitch marker, a pair of scissors, and your crochet hook. So for this project, I use a size 7 or a size 8. I'm going to use the size 8 to make this flower. Using a size 7 will work also. It's just going to make the flower slightly smaller. So I'm going to be using this pink hook. It's a Clover brand 8mm hook. So to begin, you're going to start by working in the center color. So whatever color you want to use for the center of your flower, you're going to use that color. So I'm going to be using this mustard color. And to begin, you're going to create a slip knot just like you would if you were using chunky yarn. And then you're going to place your hook through the slip knot. So if you know how to crochet, you can start by using a magic ring instead of doing this technique, but for beginners, I'm going to create a slip knot and chain 2 more. So I'm just yarning over and I'm pulling a loop through with my hook to create a chain. So you should have a total of 3 loops in your chain. Then we're going to work into this first loop that we made. So you're going to insert your hook. You're going to yarn over and pull up a loop. So you should have 2 loops on your hook. You're going to yarn over again. And you're going to pull the loop through. That is your first single crochet stitch. So you can kind of see that there's a V shape here. That's what your single crochet stitches should look like. And we're going to continue working into this first loop here. So before we do that, I'm just going to put a stitch marker through that V shape there, that first V shape that we made, just so that we know that that is our first single crochet stitch. So we made 1 single crochet. We're going to go back into that same first chain space. You're going to pull up a loop. You have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over and pull through 2. That is your second crochet stitch. You're going to do this 6 times. So pull up a loop, pull through to combine, that's 3. Pull up a loop, pull through the 2 to combine, that's 4. Pull up a loop, pull through the 2 to combine, that's 5. And you're still working into that same first chain space here. That creates the center of our circle. So here's my 6th single crochet. So once you have 6 single crochets, it should have created a circle naturally, and we're back to where we placed our stitch marker. So where you place that stitch marker, you're just going to place your hook underneath that V stitch. You can see I'm placing it under those 2 stitches there. Then I'm going to yarn over, pull up a loop, and we're going to do a slip stitch. So you're just going to pull that loop right through your last loop. So you should only have 1 loop on your hook. Now you can go ahead and leave a little tail, cut your yarn, and then you're going to use your hook and just pull the yarn all the way through, and you can just gently tighten there. So this is what it should look like. We created like a little circle here, and now we're going to work our petals off of this circle. So as you look at your circle, you should be able to kind of see these V stitches all the way around the edges here. It almost kind of looks like a chain. that's what we're going to be working into as we work our way around this circle to create our flower's petals. So we're going to work into this V-stitch where our stitch marker is. That way we know where we first began and where we're going to end. So go ahead and place your hook underneath that V-stitch. And then you're going to take your petal color, place it on your hook, and just pull a loop through. This is just how we're going to begin in the first stitch. So pull a loop through, and then we're going to create 2 more chains. So yarn over and pull a loop through, and do it 1 more time. So you should basically have a chain of 3 here, and we're going to continue working into this same chain space here. So for this entire part. So you're going to yarn over and go ahead and place your hook back into that same chain space. And then you're going to pull up a loop, and you're going to do this until you have a total of 7 loops on your hook. So yarn over, put it into the same chain space and pull up a loop. And we're going to do it 1 more time. So I have 5 on my hook right now. So yarn over, put it into the same chain space and pull up another loop. So now we should have 7 total loops on our hook. And then we're just going to yarn over and pull through all of these loops to create a puff stitch. And you're gonna chain 2, 1, 2, and you're gonna slip stitch back into the same chain space that we started in. So pull up a loop and slip stitch through. So basically we're going to repeat this all the way around until you have 5 petals. So looking at the next V-stitch or chain space here, we're going to do the same thing. So we're going to repeat what we just did. So we're going to slip stitch. It can be a little tricky to get your hook through that space if you crochet kind of tight like I do. So pull up a loop and pull it through to do a slip stitch, and then you're going to chain 2, and we're going to create our puff stitch. So yarn over, go into the same stitch, pull up a loop. You're going to do this 3 times until you have 7 loops on your hook. So that was 2 times. And here's the 3rd time. And then yarn over and pull through all of these 7 loops. So I have 7 on my hook, yarn over, pull through them all, and then you're going to chain 2 and slip stitch back into the same chain space or stitch. So we're just going to continue this pattern all the way around our circle into each chain space until we get back to our stitch marker. So in each chain space, you're just repeating slip stitch, chain 2, puff stitch, yarn over, pull through all the loops, chain 2, and slip stitch. So I'm just going to continue this pattern until I get back to my stitch marker. So I'm just completing my last puff stitch here. So as you can see, I went all the way around, and then I'm just going to chain 2 and then slip stitch back into that same chain space, and you should be back at your stitch marker. So I'm just going to use the yellow yarn that I used in the center to kind of tighten a little bit, because sometimes those tend to come loose. And then find where your stitch marker is, and we're going to do one final slip stitch into that first chain that we began. So go ahead and put your hook through where your stitch marker is. I'm just going to take the stitch marker off so you're able to see. I'm just going to create one last slip stitch. So then you can go ahead and just trim your yarn, and you can pull the yarn all the way through and pull it tight. And so this is what your flower should look like. So to finish it up, I usually just take my petal yarn and I poke it to the back. You can use a tapestry needle if you need to do this. And once I have it in the back, I'm just going to tie a double knot between those two petal ends of yarn. I just make sure that that knot's nice and tight to make it secure, and then I just trim the ends there. And then with the yellow yarn, or your center yarn that you use to make the center of your flower, I use those tail ends to attach it onto my project. And this is how it should look.